how do you onboard new developers to a SAP Cloud Integration or a CPI system, and I guess for that matter for any other platforms. So I've worked as a consultant on a lot of different clients, and the onboarding process has been a little different on all of these ones, and probably not ideal. And in this, I want to give you some of my best ideas about what can be done in that perspective. So the reason was that I was having a conversation with an architect that was saying, okay, how do I document something that makes it a lot easier for customers to, or for new developers, consultants to support us on our mission? And this was what this document is about on this presentation. So we need a few documents. There's some global integration strategy, there's some system access, and then the detailed information. Let's dive into these things. So when I get to a new place, and it's often really difficult to understand how they want to build things. Obviously it depends on if you're the only integration architects that come in or developer that come in from time to time. You can just, it's free practice, you can do whatever you want. If there is someone else in the organization, then they have some methodologies for dealing with this. This is what you want. You want some best practice scenarios. What is that we have created, that we're proud of, that we think run well in our organization? ISAM or similar methodologies where you give an understanding about how to create different integrations is also really useful, because you don't need to understand what the organization's process for handling these things. And then process description that shows you how to handle the development, documentations, what is required, and I guess that's the next thing we want to look at. How do you transport and how do you monitor? And for the last two, I hope that you have added the FIGAF tool as a part of that. And you could also create video or have applications like the ISAM methodology that's running in your CPI system. So the systems you have, and I think, yeah, this is also one of the bigger challenges. So sometimes when you're onboarded, it can take weeks for you to get credentials. I have experienced that and was then using some other consultants' access to access the system and get productive in this period, because, yeah. So that's really not pretty. You obviously need access to the systems involved. Try not to give productive access if it is not required, and at least only a read-only, view-only mode. You obviously need to give them FIGAF access if you have that system, because that is what will give them a lot of benefits in the process. And then obviously backend system access depending on the different projects. And a lot of times you don't need it if it's just CPI development work. And there is a good functional team to help in that process. And then we get to the integration specific document, what's really required there. So I would love to have the business requirement. What was it that they initially wanted to do on this thing? And yeah, a contact of the person that once created it, then maybe it will be possible to go through and find out what's going on. And I think, so one of the challenges that we obviously have in this place is to understand that once you've made the business requirement, obviously best practice is to continuously update these things. But I have seen quite a number of scenarios where you did not really get to update these different things. And obviously this can be kept in Confluence, SharePoint, wherever you want to have your document, or in SAP's ALM solution manager, or whatever makes sense there. Then you want to have the contact of the person. You want to have some technical decision about why the architect or the developer wanted to create these scenarios at that point in time. And obviously this can also be a good scenario to create, or in the Confluence, the same page. So the business requirements, some of the technical considerations, but do not go into all the specific details about what is going on. FIGAF can also auto-generate some technical documentation about what's going on. We'll look at that later. I would really love a link to the iFlow. So yeah, I know where it is, and obviously if this iFlow links to something else in the chain, that would be useful information also. Next up is one of the things that I think really makes it easier for people is to have test cases for different processes that says, okay, if we have this problem, this is how we solve it, go fix it. And this is one of the things that FIGAF can do. And you can then run these test cases, and then in your CPI system, you can go in and check the traces and see what the payloads are in different steps. And if you need to fix something, this makes it a lot easier if you have these test cases that you can run. And unit tests for some of the more complicated Groovy scripts also makes sense. We in FIGAF can also generate this based on some of the test cases that you have created. And let's just look at some of these different things that we have here. So here we have a CPI system. We have an iFlow here. We can obviously, if it had multiple versions, we could check those. We can create a scenario documentation. So here we have the auto-generated documentation created by the tool. If you had different changes in it, they would be shown here. Descriptions, etc. would be shown. You can see the BPMN diagram for this. If you had connections, they would be shown here. What are the different adapters that is being used, what the protocol are. We have the different test cases that we have that we can run, and last result of one of these. We have a flow description to understand what the flow of this message is, and then we have configurations of this across the landscape. And lastly, we have the different resources that is existing in this iFlow. If we had one iFlow that had changes into it, I think this one may have it. We have option here to go in and check versions, and so we do have this. So if we have an iFlow with multiple versions in, we can also go in, we can check the versions with a number of different ways. We can see in a graphical viewer where we can drill in and see what has been changed in separate cells. We have it as a BPMN or diff viewer that can show you the different diffs that exist here between two versions. And then you have a link here to a ticket. And we can see, okay, we created a number of tickets here, test, and we can have linked these to the Jira incident, so we actually know the Jira reason was for this change was, so we can actually go into Jira search now, or whatever we have our documentation about our changes in, so we always have this paper trail about what is going on. And this makes it also easier for the developer to go back and see what has been changed here. If we wanted to run this test case, so we have one here, we can select it. We can look at the testing results here, we can run. Now we have run this test case and we can look at the results here. We can obviously see if it compiles and runs successfully, but we can also go into the CPI system. And then we do have the trace capability on. And if you have CPI helper, which is definitely recommended tool, then you can go in here and you can see at any given point what are the payloads we're getting here, what does the message look like, and this really speeds up the development process. And if we see here, we can also see that the last test case here was run successfully and everybody was happy. We also generate some automatic test cases that you can run with payloads in that enables you to debug data. So it comes with all the required data here in it. And this also simplifies the processing if I needed to fix something on this. And then obviously you may also have documentation for governance, and this is a different league and a different requirement. This is the change history. This is the links to the Jira incidents. This is iFlow layout and content. If you want to show that across different platforms, the connections and the configurations. All of this is also something that can be auto-generated with the link to the Jira ID. That means you get full access and understanding about what's going on. I hope this has been helpful. So obviously know that the FigGaf tool is a lot more than just creating this documentation. It also enables you to handle transport testing, but documentation is really an integrated part about what we are doing. I hope you want to try it out. Go to figaf.com/devops.